See, because I want to tell you something, radio would be my thing, where I could just do something and just say what I want, you know, and that's why when you did your morning thing, I was like, well, okay, someone's doing their thing. You can't really do it on TV.
Well, that
you know?
No, I know. And you know, let's talk about that for a second, because, you know, I just got done shooting a pilot for CBS a week ago.
I'm sure there were no notes there.
And no notes.
Right.
Do your thing.
Right.
No notes.
Les going, here's my home number if you need me.
15 women giving me notes on
Right.
comedy over and over and over again.
They're a funny group, aren't they?
It would be hard to tell by looking at them.
Right.
Maybe if I performed some sort of vivisection, I could get some comedy out of
Sure.
it. You know my favorite, because you know, because you've been part of sitcoms, you starred in them, you've been brothers in them. Right. The funniest thing about doing a sitcom is the executives. And the executives will do this all the time. They're not comedians. They're not funny. They'll give you a lot of notes on story. They'll never come up with a joke. Right. And they'll do something like this. And I've never had the balls to do it, but one day I'm going to do it. And I pray they're not listening to this, because they're deciding whether we get picked up or not. So this would probably ruin the deal, but I'll say it. I won't use any names. But they do this, the comedy, and they're on the network side, and they're on the studio side, and they're everybody. And they'll do this all the time. You've been in the room when they've done this 1,000 times. They go, look, what if instead of Ray coming into the kitchen and discovering his dad and mom there, what if Ray was in the kitchen, Dad and Mom came in and discovered him, and then did something like, and not this isn't going to be funny, said something like, and I always want to yell, hold on, instead of the part where you go, not this, something funny, this isn't going to be funny.
Right.
Instead of going, not this idea, I mean, this isn't funny, this isn't going to be funny, but did something, how about you say something fucking funny?
Love
How
that.
about you say something I can write down instead of just this blanket where you do this, well, this isn't funny, but how about this?
Right.
How about just once you toss out one that I could use?
Imagine if we had that, you know, as we were coming up.
Yeah.
You know, try that one night at the Improv.
Yeah, well, you
Not
just get
this
up on
joke,
stage.
but something like this.
Something funny.
Right.
What I'm going to do now is a bit, I mean, it's basically like a comedy bit, but not this one.
Right.
This isn't funny.
Right.
Not this. They always say it because they don't have anything funny. They want different.
Right.
And my feeling is always like, I'm all ears. If we got a 7 now and you got an 8, we'll use it.
Would love that.
But your idea is, let's not use your 7.
Right.
Here's an example of a 2, but don't use it.
Right.
And my whole thing is you get paid a lot of money. How about you throw out a good one every once in a while? Just something to use. Not this. Don't use this. Not this. Like this. Not this. Don't use this. But something like, just an example, bad example, horrible example, but an example like, well, how about you give me a good example?
Well, how much and you know what? You should have waited for the upfront before
should have spouted off.
How much creative? I mean, were you able to do your own thing?
I was able to do my own thing, but I had a small meltdown at some point in the process.
Right.
After about the 15th time, I got the note on losing some of the momentum in the C story arc.
Yeah.
And starting to feel like we're losing some of the B story in the E scene, and also not feeling the story. I heard story, losing story momentum. At a certain point, I just threw my hand up and I said, is somebody going to use the fucking word funny? At a certain point, it's a comedy, everybody.
Right.
No one gives a fuck about C story momentum if they're laughing.
Right.
I never think back on All in the Family and go, you know what? I watched a few on Nick at Night, and
no pace.
It was funny, but they did lose some of the arc of the C story momentum in Act 3. No, it's just you're either laughing or you're not laughing.
See, it's funny. Television is the only industry where people are at certain points of the ladder that never got there from their creativity.
Right.
You know, they're telling musicians how to play the horn, and they're telling comedians how to hit a line, and none of them ever had to.
Sure.
Or never came up
right.
that way.
For the most part, you know, it's like Mike Ditka was an all-pro tight end for the Bears, and then he coached the Bears.
Right, right, exactly.
He wasn't a spindly kid who wasn't a hemophiliac who couldn't go out in the sun and is now going to pull out a chalkboard and explain to you how to hit the B gap.
Couldn't go out in the sun.
Couldn't go in the sun. And now he's going to explain to you how football is played. Come on, gather around, grab a knee. Let's talk fundamentals. Fundamentals from a guy who's never been on a blade of grass before?
Right.
Yes, comedy is the only place where people who, if you took, and this is every executive I've ever dealt with in my entire life, and if all the fine executives over at CBS are listening to this, this will be marginally insulting, but you will join a group. You will be in the majority here.
Sure.
If every executive I've ever worked with in my entire career, if you abducted one of their kids and said, "Look, I will send you back this kid in a shoe fucking box if you can't put together a decent 3 minutes to do on an open mic. You have 4 years." They would fucking have the wake right there.
Wow.
They literally couldn't do it. I mean,
how's the pilot? How's the
pilot's good, but am I right about that?
Absolutely. They'd be kidless, pretty much, I think is what you're fucking saying. I know it. It's true, and it's unfortunate.
Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that somebody can't have an opinion.
That's true.
It doesn't mean
or have taste or not.
Or have taste.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that somebody can't read your script.
You can know what's good.
You can know what's good.
Without being able to do it.
Yes, and you can say, I think there should be a little more story here.
Yes.
The problem is, as I see it or saw it from the inside, the focus becomes on the story and not on the laughs. It becomes 70% story, 30% laughs, when, in my opinion, it should be the other way around.
Yeah, especially when you have 22 minutes.
Try 19 minutes and 54 fucking seconds.
Now it's that. Do you play yourself?
Yes. No. Well, actually, I'm playing you. I'm playing
Not Brad. A good idea.
Not a good idea.
Brad. Yeah, don't do that.
So, yeah, I play myself. They got out of the way. We got 1,000 notes, but that's just the process. We went out, hit a home run. It's funny.
It's great.
And it's good.
Your own writers or both?
I wrote it with my partner, and we had a showrunner. And
like the showrunner? How'd that go?
That was good.
You picked your showrunner?
Yep. Good guy.
Great.
And went well. And, keep our fingers crossed.
Good, man.
Funny, good laughs and all that shit. But, Jesus, what a process.
It is. It is.
And what you're saying... I mean, as a comedian, I think, because I'm amazed at comedians that don't appreciate this, what we're doing right now, and what you can kind of do on the radio to some degree.
Sure.
I was always amazed, like I would do Loveline. I did Loveline for 10 years.
Right.
Middle of the night, safe harbor, as they call it in radio. You literally can say blowjob and, you can't say shit and fuck. Other than that, and Dr. Drew gives you the license to say cornholing or speak your mind.
Which there will be warts.
Yes.
Yeah, and cornholing.
There's nobody in the building, and it's literally you and a microphone
That's
for
where
2 hours.
That's where I should go.
No music, no weather, no traffic, no time, no nothing. 25-minute blocks of say whatever the fuck you want. And
sign me up.
I would invite comedians on the show all the time and be like, nah, not interested. And I'd be like, what? You can say whatever you want. They'd be like, I'm not into that. And then I'd realize, oh, you're an actor, but you're not a comedian.
That's right. You got to get McConaughey. No.
McConaughey was on.
Most comics aren't comfortable in their own skin.
Right.
See, I may be hacky and not have an act, but I'm very comfortable here.